This is the Erasing Shame podcast, Season 3. Honest talk for healthy living, growing, and thriving.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Erasing Shame. My name is Nancy Lee and I am your Season 3 co-host. And today I have my good friend Paul Champy with me. Thanks so much for joining us, Paul. Feel free to say to our
me. What up, guys? Paul Champy here.
Yeah, I wanted to be able to bring Paul today to be able to share a little bit more insight into the experience of what it's like to be a Cambodian Asian-American here in the U.S. We don't hear a lot of stories about Southeast Asians, and myself being a Vietnamese Chinese. I know you're Cambodian Laotian, but predominantly identify more with Vietnamese and you with more Cambodian, right?
Course, yes.
To really highlight the experiences of what it's like to be more of a Southeast Asian, since when we talk about Asian, it's a very broad topic. And so, yeah, I did want to introduce you guys to my dear friend, Paul. Paul is amazing. He's an actor. He's been in some films that you might recognize, like Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift, as well as Pirates of the Caribbean #3, I believe.
Yes.
He has his own YouTube channel called The Actor Peak, and he was really big into breakdancing and all this stuff as an entertainer. So, yeah, it's exciting to have you here. Do you want to just quickly introduce yourself to our audience, besides kind of what I've shared and your interest in being able to, openly share a little bit more of your experiences about shame?
Yeah, definitely. So, Paul Champy, born and raised San Diego, California. I lived there my whole life, so second generation in America. So my family came from Cambodia. And during that time period, there's the killing fields, the Khmer Rouge. And, a lot of people had to escape. They seek refuge in the border of Thailand. And so I believe my family was there. My aunts and uncles were there as well, too, for maybe about a year or so. And came over to America, San Diego. So I was born in 1982. But other than that, I don't really know too much about my family lineage or history. And that's one of the things that, being Cambodian, is that we really don't talk about, our problems. We don't express it. And that's one of the things that doesn't ever, or it's frowned upon when you do. So,
yeah. And how do people then deal with their problems, would you say?
Well, more than often, we just hang out, we would drink, we would have celebrations, birthday parties, you name it. But other than that, if you do something wrong or right, we don't talk about it. It gets, you just have to man up pretty much, and just you forgive and forget.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
And drink away your sorrows.
Drink away your sorrows, yeah.
Or gamble.
Yeah, gamble.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
But it's like a lot of this being present with your pain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very frustrating too, because a lot of times, as growing up as an Asian American, I really couldn't talk to my parents about my problems. I couldn't go to them. And that's probably one of the biggest, I want to say, concerns that a lot of, people from the Cambodian culture and community have is, a lot of them join gangs is because that's their family.
Yeah.
Because there's no support. And, by joining a gang, you have some sort of recognition or some sort of importance that you made, or to make you feel like you're valued.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I know a little bit of the history with the Cambodian genocide, and Pol Pot, from what you've shared and what I've learned, is there was if you were anyone of influence or anyone who was educated, then basically you are a target, right? And therefore, when that translated here to America, this idea of seeking higher education was frowned upon as well, right? Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So the killing fields, Pol Pot, he was the leader of the Khmer Rouge. And if you were intelligent, if you were a doctor, if you were a lawyer, if you looked smart, you were knocked off. You were killed immediately. And my parents, they're of the working class, and they knew nothing of education. Proper education. So when they came over to America, I guess that kind of transpired or just corresponded to what they're doing here in Americas, because yes, they are given a second chance to live in a beautiful place, but they know nothing of education. Growing up, my parents told me to work hard and to have family and to have a kid or to have kids of my own. And if I was in Cambodia, I'll be married by now.
I have 4 or 5 kids,
So,
right?
yeah.
Your own little clan.
Yeah, my own little tribe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and so I think that's one significant thing that a lot of people aren't aware of, because when they think of Asians as the model minority in America, a lot of Southeast Asians like you and me and our stories of, Vietnam or Cambodia coming through war and starting off, with nothing, and essentially also losing the country that our parents came from, which almost translates to like losing a sense of their identity and restarting a whole identity. But one of the key differences, I think, in terms of the Vietnamese and Cambodian culture, like there's a high emphasis in the Vietnamese community on going to school, having a career success, financial success. But there's a difference there in terms of the Cambodian community that education wasn't always accessible, or that there were barriers to that. And so we can probably agree then the opportunities in terms of growing in the career successes and financial successes, there's been less opportunities there, right?
Yeah.
Overall, I mean, I don't want to generalize with everybody, but that's kind of the trend in the community. I do know, like, Vietnamese people have had the nail shops as their niche. Cambodians came
Yes.
here and
We have our donut shops.
you guys got your donut shops.
Donut shops.
Yeah, it's like I've heard like 80% of the donut shops in SoCal, the independent donut shops, are run by.
Yeah, and that's a lot. It's actually Cambodian Chinese, or the mix, or in between.
Yeah, do you have stories about that growing up?
Well, yeah. I mean, like when I was a little kid, my dad would always take me to the donut shop, and like I didn't know why. I figured we're just gonna go to the donut shop just to have some donuts, right?
You can only have so much, though, right?
Exactly. So it turns out that I was there for like 6, 7, 8 hours. So I began to question my dad. I'm like, "Hey, Dad, what are we doing there for so long?" So it turns out that he was working, and because my dad, it was hard for him to find employment, because one, it's just coming over to America. He had to learn a language. And he also had to be a man to take care of his family. So he had to put food on the table. So working underneath the table at a Cambodian donut shop, or that was the only thing that my dad knew, because that was the only employment that he had. And he worked hard. We had Social Security, Medi-Cal growing up, and we were unfortunate. And that was one of the things that I didn't question a whole lot. But I know, like, I think one of the things that I was shameful of, there was a time when, like, I would wear the same clothes to school, and I would get upset and at my parents. I'm like, "Hey, I want new clothes," but my mom and dad they would always take me to, or my brothers and sisters and I, to the swap meet or
Fam Bam.
Yeah. Yes.
Good talk.
Yes, because it was cheap. But my mom, she would make clothes for us, and so she's a great seamstress. She has her own sewing machine, and yes, my mom works too. And one of the things that I want to touch bases on is these sweatshops
in the U.S.
In the U.S. And it was crazy because these sweatshops, they're illegal. And that at that time, it's like we knew nothing about what was right, what was wrong, and what was illegal. Because we thought that, hey, we come to America, we're here to work, and we just want to get paid to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't know any better because they're so gullible. And it's still happening today. But I'm not sure if there's any more sweatshops in America, but I'm pretty sure there are.
Yeah. It's just whatever you could to survive, right? Yeah, and even for us, I mean, the importance of community, it was everything. Because if, for our stories of our parents leaving their country, I know in Cambodia and the whole history of the killing fields, it was like up to 2.5 million people, which was like 30% of the whole country that basically lost their lives. And when it came to the Vietnam War, that was 4 million, and then 58,000 American soldiers that basically lost their lives too, as well as another million that lost their lives just coming over to the U.S. And so huge numbers that don't really get talked about every day. And just to give some sort of perspective, the Holocaust had 6 million that lost their lives over all of Europe. And right now we're really just identifying Vietnam and Cambodia specifically. So huge numbers and the impacts of that. I've read articles of how it took 20 to 30 years for people to even begin, both Americans and Asians, to really start talking about the impacts of the Vietnam War. And so very similar because it's the same timing with the Cambodian history. It takes a lot of time, like, to have trauma really surface and for it to be dealt with. So I'm really glad that us being second generations now, that we get to start delving into more of a place of healing. And I don't know about your family, if they've really started having any greater sense of awareness or the healing that they wanted for themselves. But I've heard a lot of stories of PTSD in the community because, you know, like, you're basically living through war and you escaped, and the whole experience of being a refugee, it's traumatic. So have you had that personal experiences yourself?
Um, well, in terms of like, with my parents, it's I've tried to talk to them about the killing fields
Hmm.
and pry it out of them. It's hard. They don't
Yeah.
want to talk about it. I think with my dad, I actually have to, I've heard it from my aunts and uncles, and so they're actually more open to it because they were able to heal. I guess everyone heals differently at their own time, at their own pace. And with my dad, he really doesn't talk about it because I think his younger brother, um, well, he didn't come over to America, so he was the youngest, and I
Oh,
think,
so he stayed in Cambodia?
well, I think he got killed.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So I just remember this as we're talking right now too, and I'm just trying to figure out why my dad was just so distant about this particular topic.
Yeah.
It's very sensitive.
Yeah.
Um, and so just seeing that as a little kid,
Mm,
um, I've learned to not really talk about my problems.
yeah.
I've hid everything
Hmm.
where it was, you know, I'm just gonna hold it inside, not share it. But then all that shame, all that anger and that frustration creates that buildup, eventually it's gonna explode. Just like when you shake a Coke bottle, it's gonna explode
Yeah.
eventually. Um, but I found I had to find other source of expressing my feelings. And that was, through dance. I grew up breakdancing when I was a little kid.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that was a way for me, that was my outlet. And um, I just couldn't explain it, but just dancing, just it was my zen, my peace, my harmony. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even with my family, the stories of the Vietnam War, just this past year, I was hearing different things come out from my grandparents of how they had lost family members in the war as well. And, you know, I'm born in America. My whole life, they haven't really talked about it as well. And it's like every time you bring it up, they're like, why, right? It's sad. And so I'm grateful for the opportunities where those little bits and pieces you get to come out, and I cherish those moments because, you know, they're not going to be around forever and I don't want to lose that part of their history, even though for them
yeah,
they think it's like a bad thing. But I think for us, for me at least, I can speak for myself, that there's something that has been missing by not being able to hear their stories and not being
yeah,
able to understand their struggle, because everything for us here has been a reaction to, like, why are they the way that they are,
hmm
as opposed to, like, why aren't they giving us what we want as, you know, Americans, because we're Asian Americans and we think of ourselves as Americans, although we were raised in the values of being Asian, right, and
yeah,
the minority experience or the refugee experience. And so there's a huge disparity there. And so I'm so grateful for just progress and growth and healing, and that we get to continue to bring a voice to this. So yeah.
yeah,
um, I do say that because I grew up with a lot of Cambodian people in the community from high school, and, you know, Paul, you're one of the people that, you know, is like family to me.
yeah,
um, I've always been, like, so in love with the Cambodian community because they're so welcoming, so warm, so
yeah.
relational, and it's something that I've always just valued so much. I do know that there is positives and then things that are negatives. What are the biggest challenges, would you say, besides kind of the things that we shared already with being within the Asian community or Southeast Asian community as a Cambodian?
Loyalty. So there's a lot of loyalty with the Cambodian culture. Um, we have a strong bond, strong niche of that togetherness.
Yeah.
So pretty much everyone in San Diego, if you're Cambodian, you pretty much know each other. So we're that small, we're that tight knit. I
Well,
love
that's a
it.
good thing and a bad.
Yes, exactly. And so well, the bad thing is like, if a Cambodian person asks you to borrow something, you're not going to ever see it again. So, so it's like, hey, let me borrow it. It's mine now.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's just like, I love that about the Cambodian culture, that bond, tight knit, especially when we have New Year's, the celebrations that we have, the festivities. One of the things that I don't like about the Cambodian culture is our pride. We carry way too much pride, and that pride can lead to disaster of violence, of joining gangs and Cambodian people killing each other. It doesn't matter if you're from different sets. If you're Cambodian, like, we should all get along, but that's not the case. If you're different sets, no.
Yeah.
It's either you're for us or you're against us.
Exactly.
There's no gray areas. There's nothing in between.
Yeah. And, same with a lot with the Asian community, but I feel like there is a deeper sort of loyalty sometimes that I see in the Cambodian community. A lot of the values as a Vietnamese American was really to work hard, to get ahead, and, be able to be successful and be able to pave a future for ourselves, especially coming through the refugee immigrant experience and everything that our families did for us. But there's so much conflict sometimes within the community. I mean, I know my family, like, we're a huge family, but nobody gets along, And as I really uncover more of the impacts of shame, and when we talk about shame, there's a lot of pride because it's a lack of an ability for people to accept themselves for who they are, internally, as well as when that doesn't happen for yourself, then you're also rejecting other people because it's a lack of self-love, and then it's projecting onto others as well. So there's so much dysfunction when there's so much shame, and especially in the Southeast Asian community where they're very highly shame-based, where the groups are very tight-knit, that like when you leave the group, there's that extra pressure.
Yeah.
And I think between you and me, like, we've kept in touch all these years because I can really relate to a lot of your journey, that we've kind of stepped outside of the box, the whole all or nothing thing, taking a stand for our passions, our dreams, our goals, and really being able to pursue some of the bigger things that are on our heart, and allowing yourself to feel that sense of freedom and independence as, an American, right? Asian American.
Yes.
But I do recognize that it's challenging. Like, for me, I became an entrepreneur. I gave up the whole idea of a steady job, as well as I, chose to be a Christian. So I went against the norm of what it's like to be a Vietnamese American. Most Vietnamese Americans are not Christian. What about for you? What are areas that you felt like you kind of lost a sense of your community because of the choices that you made?
Wow. I want to say, well, my family's Buddhist, and this is a very, very sensitive subject with me. It wasn't too long ago I converted to Christianity, and this was difficult for me to tell my parents. For the longest time, I didn't say anything, but then every Sunday I would wake up early to go to church. And then my parents, normally I don't wake up early, right? And my mom asked me, "It's like, why are you waking up so early? Where are you going every Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning?" And then finally, after about maybe, I want to say 3-4 months, I pretty much just like ignored her. I didn't tell her where I was going because I was afraid and I was ashamed of what she was going to say. I told her, and then I finally had the guts to tell her that I was going to church. And I sat there and I just looked at her and see what she was going to say. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's good. That's good."
Yeah. But then there comes that conflict of like, when they go to the temple, what do we do, right? And so I guess what to say is, it is a little bit challenging when we're in such a tight-knit community, right? Finding our sense of independence, but also feeling that like disloyalty to our family, right?
Yeah, the betrayal.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt like what happened was, I betrayed my family. My family, they're Buddhist, and I went to Christianity. And it's just very difficult. Like my parents would invite me to go to temple all the time, but I would just politely refuse. And I don't get me wrong, I want to spend time with my family, but there are times where it's just when it comes to religious factors, I'm not going to do certain things because of what I believe.
Yeah, and even like, because I know a lot of the social atmosphere is a drinking atmosphere.
Yeah.
So like you choosing to be healthier.
Yeah.
And going against, right, peer pressure or
Yes.
drinking with the family and getting drunk like you normally do.
Yes.
That's probably been something that is a little bit more in your
Yeah.
face every Friday night or Saturday night.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's we drink all the time. I don't want to sound my alcoholic, but I do love to drink.
Yeah.
I guess it's in my blood. A lot of times it's more social. When we see each other, hanging out in the weekends, family parties, birthday parties, you name it. We're always drinking. We're gambling.
It's usually around the home.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like the community exists around the home.
Around the home, around the beaches, Princess Beach in San Diego. So it's actually called Cambodian Beach because all the Cambodians go to Princess Beach.
Yeah.
So.
What about in your experiences with like dancing or your careers, your passions? Did you feel that sense of disconnect choosing your path as well?
At first, in the beginning when I was a little kid, it was just I did it for fun.
Yeah.
Right. But then as I grew older, I want to say my junior year in high school, I did my very first musical called The Wiz, and
musical.
Yes, and so I was actually one of the Funky Monkeys. So I was actually a dancer. So, but that was when I decided, you know what, I walked out on stage and there was nobody there. We were rehearsing one day and it was completely empty. And I told myself, this is what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a performer. I want to be on stage. I want to be, an actor, a dancer. And that's what started it all. And then when I graduated high school, I went to Mesa College. That's when I started my whole, my dancing career. I started with Culture Shock and I danced at Mesa College. And then from there, it was just, I didn't really tell anybody, especially my parents, because, they didn't see any value of dancing. It's just like, how are you going to dance and make money?
Yeah.
They didn't know anything like, but, it was difficult for me. But then I got into acting. I did a bunch of shows at my community theater at Mesa College, but, they never came, but I think my mom came to one show and that made me really proud that she did, but my dad wasn't really responsive or, it just wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we had even shared like my parents weren't at my high school graduation and neither were yours. So it's almost like, unless there was a revenue component of it, it wasn't really valued in the same way that we talk about in the American culture of like making sure to be there for every moment or every recital, every rehearsal, every show.
Yeah.
I think there are, psychological effects of just feeling that lack of support, right? When we're out there pursuing a lot of our things. And I know for you've been in the dancing thing. You've also shared that you've kind of had to choose dancing or your friends. But it seems like this whole all or none culture, what it's come across for me in my experience is that it's almost like this level of disowning. So when you have chosen to do your own thing and even grow healthier as a person, there's a level of disowning from the community or a level of disowning from your parents. Because I've experienced that. I've been kicked out from my family at the age of 18. I've had many girlfriends that have been kicked out. I think more pressure being on the woman. I don't know about the guys as much, but when they have chosen to have some sort of independence, and it's like, it's this all or none, like either you're going to obey the rules or we don't want any part of you and you are no longer mine.
Yeah.
And we have a terminology in Vietnamese culture too, where it's like adopted child, where you're close to like your family friends. And then they're like, you're like my adopted child. And so it's like this sense of, I'll take you in, because so much of abandonment, so much of this orphan mentality and this sense of rejecting self, as well as rejecting those you love when you don't know how to deal with challenges or conflicts or disagreements, as opposed to learning how to work together and have compassion through that space, as well as accepting us for who we are, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's heavy.
It is. It is. I mean, that love and support factor goes a long way, you know, especially growing up in my household. My parents were really strict. My dad was very stern. Anything that I did, you know, the car that I bought, it had, you know, I couldn't get a rice rocket.
So, you didn't have a rice rocket?
No, I did eventually get a rice rocket.
I thought you did. I was trying to remember in high school.
My senior year in high school. Okay. So I bought a rice rocket, right, from my friend Dante.
Yeah.
And brought it home, and my parents were like, nope, that this car does not belong in this driveway or at this house.
Mm-hmm. It had like the NOS,
yes,
and all the dropped around.
It was dropped in a body kit and everything. So it was a really nice car. That was my baby.
Yeah.
I named it Lisa, so it's my baby Lisa at the time. But long story short, no, I couldn't have that car. So I was a senior in high school, so I told my buddy if I can just crash at his place for a couple weeks. And that's what I did. I went to his house, and then I stayed at his house because, like, I bought the car. It's not like I couldn't return it, and they weren't understanding. And at that time, I was 18, and then on my birthday, I got a piercing on my eyebrow. I thought it was cool. You know, I wanted to be a little, you know, hood or.
That was cool.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I did it. I went to the tattoo parlor and got it done. It kind of hurt a little bit too. I cried like a little baby, to tell you the truth. But I got it done. I was like, okay, cool. There's a little stud right there. I'm like, all right, cool. Paid the guy, walked out, then drove home. And then the moment I get inside the house, Dad was there. I was like, what the F is that? Take it off right now. If you don't take it off, get out. Get out of my house. So I talked to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I can't take it off right now. I'm sorry. I apologize for what I did. You know, I should have asked for permission because my dad was that controlling.
And out of control.
Yes. And I told him, like, I have to wait 30 days because, like, my dad knows nothing about piercing. And I told him, like, if I take it out now, I'm going to bleed. So
was that true?
No. I just wanted to heal. I just wanted to have for 30 days. I'm like, okay, cool. So I went to school. I'm like, yeah, what up, guys? You know, I want to be cool for 30 days.
Days. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you even break dance with that on?
No, you can. But you can. You just have to be careful.
Yeah.
You just have to be careful. But no, I took it off, and because I didn't want any conflict at home.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be, you know, an outcast and disrespecting rules, and you know. You just have to listen to mom and dad, you know, if you're still living at home.
Yeah, for sure. And I think both of us, as we have progressed in our career and starting to really find a more sense of independence in our adulthood, there's come a point where you start recognizing that, like, following their rules isn't necessarily working for you anymore, right?
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit of that experience for you and
that
whole journey?
Well, like, growing up, like I said, my parents, they're not very well educated because of what happened in Cambodia with the killing fields, and then they came over here, and all they did was work. So they try to implement that on me and my brothers and sisters. Now, after high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was lost. I was completely lost, and, like, I needed guidance. And my parents couldn't direct me because they just told me to work. Like, what was I going to do? Just work the rest of my life and have a family and have kids? It wasn't what I wanted. You know, I wanted to go to school, and that's the reason why I did what I did. You know, I partied a lot, you know, hung out with the wrong people, got into a lot of trouble, you know, went to jail, you know, got DUI, but no, you know, nothing serious. I didn't kill anybody, but thank God.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was just all that pretty much just me being alone, just trying to figure things out by myself. And I think throughout the years of just trying to act, trying to dance, I wasn't getting anywhere. And so I just felt so alone, and I kept to myself, and I became sad and depressed, where it was just like, you know, I need to figure out plan B. Like, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah. And when we say depressed, like, you were going through a whole season of not just like, oh, I'm down today. Like, you were going through a season of a lot of drinking.
Yes. A lot of drinking.
Impacts of, like, mental health.
Yeah. mental health, anxiety. I've been having these pains where I just couldn't remember like who I was. I will look in the mirror and just like, it's just like, is that really me? And then I begin to have that question of significance. Who am I?
Yeah.
What am I here for? What am I doing? And these migraines just turned into it just got worse, where I just felt like my head was just going to explode. And like, I couldn't do anything. And I just wanted to give up. And like, I didn't know how to take it, because I felt like if I went to anybody and told them about my problems, they're going to look at me like I'm crazy.
Or you'll be further outcasts from the community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, because my friends talk, my families talk, and there's no such thing as having secrets. Like the moment you open your mouth, that's it. Everyone's going to know.
Everybody knows.
Everybody, your mom knows about it. So,
and it's not really taken seriously. It's more like, what's wrong with you? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, same here with, my journey of going through the corporate ladder and then entrepreneurial ladder. And then I was experiencing mental shutdown, fatigue. Basically, the diagnosis would be that I have overwhelm.
Yeah.
All my anxiety. It's like, oh man, going through the season of actually facing yourself in the mirror. And then for us, because we had never had the opportunity to know who we are, have our own identity, have our own voice. Like there's a lot. There's a lot in there, you know, when you really dig. And it's definitely a season of a little bit of nakedness, a little bit of just rawness. And for me, I have never experienced as much shame as I have in this past year of my life until this season hit. I don't know for you if that also was the case, because for me, it was a separation of me separating from my family, from my career, from everything that I was programmed to do or live for my family and for my community, and now defining that for myself. And that transition has been so shaming. It's like weird.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that in a way?
Well, sometimes it's like we feel shame, but we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I can go to my parents. It's not like I can go to my brothers and sisters. It's like we're very prideful.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, we'll hear you out. And what do you want us to do about it? Like, man up.
Yeah.
Man up. It's like, quit being a little,
Mm-hmm.
quit being a wuss. Pretty much, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what became your outlet? Was hiking, nature?
Yeah. So
share about all the good stuff that came from it, because
definitely.
I think it's safe to say that even through our darkest moments, like there's some beauty that comes out of it. So yeah, where did that lead you?
Well, my outlet, it was acting. So for 11 years, I loved acting. I loved being in front of the camera, in front of people, being on stage. But that came to a halt, and like I had to make a really, really difficult situation. It was like, Paul, you can't continue to do this for the rest of your life. It's like you need to, have stability. How are you going to take care of yourself financially? How are you going to start a family if you can't take care of yourself? So I went back to school, right? And then like I got a degree in business administration. So now I work at the bank. A really good job, pays well. But I missed acting. And I was really depressed because I was trying to find a way, how can I get back into acting? And at that time I was hiking. Mm-hmm. When I was hiking, I really didn't, I took photos and stuff, took selfies, but I really didn't think too much of it. Mm-hmm. So I told myself, you know what? How can I incorporate hiking and acting all together? So that's when I decided, I'm going to start my own YouTube channel.
There you go.
So creating content on YouTube, just promoting products and service for outdoors, for hiking. And it was amazing to be able to act and hike at the same time. That was just a way for me just to get away from the stress, from the everyday life, from the 9 to 5. It just made me just happy.
Yeah. How does it feel to be in front of the stage? Just from what I've heard, it's like you're a whole different person, and you get to be free, and the sense of shame or everything that you felt attached to in terms of your community, like doesn't exist in that world, right? Like, is that the feeling for you?
Yeah, I think, come to think of it, Nancy, the reason why I wanted to act was because I want to be able to express my emotions, my feelings.
Wow.
And
in a place that was okay.
Exactly. So whether or not, if I was criticized or not, I was going to take that criticism there. And that was the only place that I can take it.
Wow.
And it was just great being able to play someone else that I'm not. Being able to share my story playing someone else. Mm-hmm. Having my stories come to life on stage. That was the only way that I really could express myself. And through contemporary dance, hip hop dance. And that was the only way.
Wow. It's great that you found that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people also find joy in dancing. Yeah. Did you feel that same?
I did.
Or just more so that camaraderie of being able to be part of something bigger?
The camaraderie.
Yeah.
The family. It's a different type of family. Especially I love the dance battles.
Yeah.
So normally I'm like the first on stage and then the last to leave. Yeah. So, I would get the party started. So I'm a party starter, especially at weddings and stuff. I love to dance.
Oh, hire him for the next wedding. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Yeah, because at that point, it's like nothing else matters, right? It's just what you can bring towards in terms of freedom of expression and just being able to be you. Right. That's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah, and then also with hiking and nature is very healing. Mm-hmm. And before all of these other crazy things that we do today, including essential oils,
yes.
Nature was like the natural remedy for most things. And so it's awesome that you've been able to combine hiking and nature and your love for acting and being able to do something to contribute to the world and step into a greater purpose. So kudos to you, Paul.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But it's overwhelming sometimes, and then your body can only take so much, where everything comes to a toll, or your body begins to break down. I know recently, my body's one, I'm probably getting older. My body doesn't recover like it used to.
He's still single, ladies.
Yes, but no, it's just. I'm trying not to take a bunch of medication. Mm-hmm. Went to the doctors, and I've been trying to do like the natural remedy with essential oils. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say thank you for hooking me up. Dr. Nancy here hooked me up with a dime bag real quick.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, it's just like I'm just trying to find something that's going to help me alleviate that stress, that pain, and those headaches. So I feel like this natural remedies, it's helping.
Yeah.
But that can only do so much. I know, dieting or the food that I eat really plays a key factor as well too, because I've been abusing my body from drinking, from caffeine, from nicotine. All these things will eventually add up, and my body's finally feeling it, and I can tell the difference.
Yeah.
So now I'm just trying to take care of myself as I get older. So.
I know for me, it was like overworking, and now I'm like, oh shoot, I need to take care of myself too. But it's good that we get to realize now we're still in our 30s. We've got a lot of life ahead.
Yes.
And I know that, because we've connected on this, that's why you wanted to be able to come on and be able to share a little bit of your story, because this is for everyone else, because there's a lot of healing in being able to share our story and to also help pave the way for the next generation. So learn from our mistakes, guys. Yes. Take care of yourselves. There is a level of honor that we want to carry for our families, but at the same time, the only way that we can help our families is if we ourselves are healthy, whatever that looks like for each and every one of us. So hopefully that's an encouragement to all of you guys to really take a stand for yourself, because you matter. In terms of the Cambodian community, or anything else that you want to say in terms of final words there, to share with our audience?
Definitely. Cambodian people, I just want to say, look, I'm proud of you, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up. I know times can get tough, but you just have faith and believe in yourself, because, the moment you give up, that's it. You're going to, turn to drugs, turn to alcohol, turn to gangs. Just know that there's different resources out there to help. Join a group, join a dance group, go out hiking. You can call me or message me. You come hiking with me. I'll take you out. I'll be your friend. You know, if you just, it's okay to vent and to talk about your problems. Just let it out. But that's my, input. But just know that, whatever you're doing, I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud of my family. I'm proud of the Cambodian culture. It's not easy, but just be thankful for the life that you have. And sky's the limit.
Yeah. And obviously, we're sharing in the context of being a Cambodian or Vietnamese, Asian-American.
Yeah.
But this message is for everybody.
Exactly.
Everybody, there's hard times, and just know that there's hope at the end of that. You just got to find what works for you, but don't be quiet about it. Feel free to vent and share your pain and find that safe space that you can really be able to step into a greater sense of healing, whether it is through nature or whoever that is. I mean, I know that you found it through dancing and acting and other areas there, but it may look different from everyone, but there is that sort of escape or that light at the end of the tunnel. So
I mean, it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah.
But just try something different. You know, I mean, just tell yourself, like, hey, I need to go to the gym. I need to work out more. Instead of talking, just do it. Just wake up and just go.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Just get up and go.
And I think the big thing is that it's not just to do it and do it on your own, but do something that you feel more connected to something bigger than yourself, or feel more connected to community. Because I think for us, coming from such a deep and rich community, that is something that's very important to still feel whenever you're stepping into big things, whether it's through dance or through acting, somewhere that you feel like you're not alone, because you're not. So but that's pretty much our time, guys. I definitely want to thank you, Paul, for coming on here and sharing and being vulnerable about some of your experiences. I know that it means a lot to me and to everyone that's listening, especially because we don't hear too many stories from the Cambodian community. And it is so important to really be able to capture the history of every single experience here in America as an Asian American, because it is not just one experience, and there's different levels of shame, and they look different, and they have very different impacts. And so, stay tuned for more stories on our next episode of Erasing Shame. And this is pretty much our time. So thanks again, Paul.
Oh, thanks for having me, Nancy.
Yeah, thanks everyone else for tuning in.
All right. Thanks, guys. Peace out.
Bye.
Thank you for being a part of Erasing Shame. Please rate and review on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, and like on Facebook. Share with your friends and followers. Together, we are erasing shame one story at a time. Get all the details at erasingshame.com.